You would think all would be well in the world when you're coming off a 66-7 victory over the Purdue Boilermakers on Saturday night, but several Notre Dame fans remain skeptical over Notre Dame's passing offense led by quarterback Riley Leonard. But there are three key takeaways that have me excited for the rest of the 2024 season for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Here they are next. There was two realities with this Notre Dame game coming into this week. One, Notre Dame was going to come out and throttle Purdue, who on paper they were just more talented than and a much deeper team. Or Notre Dame was going to tuck their tail between their legs and they were going to either win a 3-point game or lose a 3-point game. But either way, you were going to come out of this game feeling not so great about the trajectory of Notre Dame football the last 2 weeks. Obviously, the former existed today as Notre Dame absolutely demolished this team, where they were up 42-0 at halftime against Purdue, ran for over 360 yards. This was a decisive victory, but more than anything, the number one takeaway from this game was that Coach Marcus Freeman, who has had some issue with getting his team consistently up for games in both the big and small games over the course of his tenure, got the most out of his football team. From start to finish, this team was laser focused. Offensively, scoring 9 touchdowns, defensively shutting down this team and only giving up one score that was off of a blown assignment and a little bit of miscommunication, and special teams doing what they did, coverage units, punting, not the best, but kicking. This was a decisive victory in all three stages, and credit goes to Marcus Freeman and this staff. He had his team, who was deflated last week, ready to go. Huge takeaway from this week, as we wanted to see what Notre Dame team we got, and we got a very good one. My second main takeaway is if the quarterback position gets better, which I think it incrementally did on Saturday, Notre Dame has some dudes in the backfield. We have heard Coach Marcus Freeman talk in nauseam about wanting to be an offensive line-driven team, wanting to establish the run consistently. And I would pose the question, is there a deeper running back room in college football than the Notre Dame Fighting Irish? Just had an article at A to Z Sports discussing this, because we could talk about Jeremiah Love and his 10 carries for 109 yards. We could talk about Jadarian Price and his 8 carries for 86. But you also see Aeneas Williams come to the football game. Keidron Young, who is technically your 5th string running back at this point, and I would argue could start for more than half of FBS teams in the country today. The depth of this running back room is absolutely bananas. Then you add in the fact that Riley Leonard ran for 11 carries for 100 yards and 3 touchdowns in just one half of football. The ability to run the football here, if passing game can become more consistent and more dependable on a week-to-week basis, this is a chance to be a dynamic offense, both off running game-wise, passing game-wise, and it starts with those premier running backs, Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price, who went bananas on Saturday nights. One thing, and this is the third key for you all, the one thing that we were promised when head coach Marcus Freeman took over and what we had already seen from him as the defensive coordinator was he vowed that this team would become longer and more athletic everywhere and the depth would improve. And I would argue that's the biggest difference from year 1 under Marcus Freeman to year 3 under Marcus Freeman. Is just the depth that he has been able to create. 66-7 victory. Obviously, we saw a lot of different players. We saw 4th string tight ends. We saw 5th string running backs. We saw 4th string quarterbacks. And despite whoever went in that football game, nobody looked out of place. And in some years under Notre Dame, we would have players that would have to be forced into roles that they weren't ready for, and they did not look like they belonged on the field that day. This was not the case. You saw Kenny Minchey, 3rd string quarterback, come into the game, have a touchdown run. You saw CJ Carr get some run late. You saw 5th stringer running back Keidron Young. You saw 4th string tight ends Kevin Bauman, who was once a 4-star recruit coming out of the state of New Jersey. You saw guys like Bryce Young on the defensive line. You saw Armel Mukum. You saw Kingston Viliamoasa. You saw Kennedy Urlacher at safety. The depth of this class, of this football team, we're talking about the 2023 and 2024 class, is absolutely phenomenal. So while there might be questions still about Marcus Freeman and just the overall trajectory of this program, the cupboard is certainly not bare. Tons of depth and big-time football players on the horizon here, which we saw in tonight's victory. And as a Notre Dame fan, was great to see them come out and deploy not only all these great players, but then to lead to a 66-7 victory. Folks, it's a good night. If you're grumpy, go to sleep. And as always, go Irish.